and welcome back to UML Operator. In this early adopter edition, we're going to finally talk about creating HTML or web reports in Sparx Enterprise Architect. I've talked a great deal about reporting. I've talked about building cover pages and navigation. How do you put this to work on your web server to share internally or externally? You have to be careful with that, but let's get started. So why use Sparx HTML reports? One reason is not every stakeholder in your company or your shop may have the Sparx licensing. So if you build out a web report, you can see that you can match the navigation. In the Sparx, if we wanted to get to the solution building blocks, we simply use Sparx as a thick client. Now there is a Sparx Lite version, which is free floating around, but if you publish to the web, you're able to navigate to the same elements as you would if you were in Sparx. This gives the modelers, the stakeholders in the project, the ability to see intelligence. We'll talk more about the navigation in this section of your models as you're building them in Sparx. A good practice to follow before publishing to the web is to have your package structure available where you're going to store your models. The second part is building your navigation and then setting your home landing page, your default page. Now, what you're going to see here in a moment is that you can actually change what models are presented when the user launches your web models, but make sure you build some sort of navigation, especially if you have more than one model that you're presenting on the web. And we're going to do a full project report, and then we're going to do individual project reports, and I'll show you how. So how you publish a Sparx web report is pretty simple. First, you're going to build out your navigation, your package structure at any level, because you can always come back and republish. All right, so we're going to go to the Publish tab, and in the diagram image, you have HTML. Let's go ahead and hit this down caret here. You have standard HTML report, and then you have Publish to Joomla. We're not going to talk about Joomla. It's a pretty awesome third-party platform that Sparx integrates pretty naturally to, but we're going to publish a standard HTML report. So you get this dialog box here, and it will tell you what package you're on. This is very important. Understand this first. You can always come in and reset what package that you want to publish on, and we'll publish that package after selection. The next thing is the title, and this is going to be the title on your web report. The next thing is output to. Now, I'm publishing it locally on an IIS or Windows web presence on my desktop, but this can be to an FTP site. This can be to your web location that you've got mapped to your desktop and so on. We're not going to get into styles. You can default, it uses the default style, but you can create your own style guides and so on. We're not going to do that in this episode. The other thing is that you can publish to HTML and other file extensions. We're going to use .htm. We're going to use my theme. There are all sorts of themes that you can use. I created a custom theme called My Theme that I'm going to be using, but you can choose any of the themes that you've learned about when you're configuring your Sparx instance. Then your header file. And so you're going to create a custom header file, or it's just going to use the standard Sparx header file, and you'll see that in a moment. Image quality. I go with very high image. If you've got performance problems on your web server, you can go with other resolutions, if you will, from draft, standard, and high resolution to very high. I use very high in this demonstration. Next is general, and I don't have any of these checked, but you can configure the general output of your web, and I'm just going to accept the defaults. I want the external hyperlink target to be at top, and you can hit this drop down and you can change that if you wish. I would not do that. I would start with top, and if you want your models to go off onto their own tab or new windows, then you can change that. We're just going to go with a top. Your image format, you've got PNG and GIF files. I use PNG. All right, next is the include section. So you can see by default, all of these on the left, maintenance items, resource allocation, hyperlinked files, and then non-printable elements. And this is if you've set those, you want those to show up. I have all those checked. Then test cases. You can choose to have your test cases included in your HTML report or not. I have them included. I think the glossary is very important. And this is the internal glossary that we've talked about in this channel. And you'll see that in just a moment. And then you have model tasks and model issues. So you can choose to include these in your web report. The next dialog section is default diagram. So model default, current diagram, other diagram, here or just none. You can set what diagram shows when you launch your web through this dialog box. We're going to use the model default, and that is the default landing page that we set when we configured this Sparx instance. So when you're ready to go and everything is set that you want, you simply hit generate, and it's going to run through depending on the size of your project, and it is going to create that. Now, remember, it's doing it from the package down. So from the package you see here, and all of the sub packages are going to show up in the report. And if depending on the size of your project will depend on the progress, the time it takes to generate the HTML. It has completed. You're notified using a sound, a notification bell, or what you have configured in your Windows, and you can see HTML generation created. We're going to hit OK, and then we're going to select View. And it will launch in your default browser, and you can see that this pretty much matches the format of our landing page. So whatever we have configured, it will show in this page. So if we have stakeholders in the model view, you can select it, and it really doesn't take you to anything in the web view. In Prolaborate, it will launch the model view and provide you a SQL view of that, but we're not going to talk about Sparx Prolaborate in this session, nor are we going to talk about Sparx Web EA, but this allows you to get to your web views very quickly as you're delivering your project for non-Sparx or other modelers or stakeholders you're collaborating with. Now, this is a rather large project example that's here with navigation. Let's go to solution, building blocks, and let's go ahead and look at particular views. So in this particular case, let's go to a view for relationships, and we can see that there are several connections between elements that are in here. Now, this is only looking, as you've learned in this channel, only looking at the diagram and the connections between the elements. However, if we go to traceability, we can see that there are requirements that are external to this model that are attached. So let's just right click on this, and then let's view in all diagrams. And let's just go to business requirements. Let's go to business requirements analysis. So in this particular case, we have applications from our building blocks, and we were doing scope analysis where we're drawing realization, right? So if we look at where this model is in the browser, it is in the solution approach namespace, but there are no requirements that are in this namespace. And so when I'm running a web report, I'm unable to get to these requirements. And this will make more sense in a moment. Let's go ahead and select the requirement and hit Alt-G. You can see that the requirements are in the business requirements namespace in the overall requirements management namespace or package. So let's look at the report next for this particular project and its particular solution. So here's a web report for the same project model. You'll notice that navigation is on the left, and I usually have navigation, project navigation on the right within my desktop instance. Let's go ahead and go drill down into solution approach and go into solution analysis and building blocks. You can roll your mouse button and zoom in and out of your elements. We want to focus on the e-commerce site that's here. We're going to go ahead and select it. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit. So we have a date and time when the element was created, when it was last modified, and there's some other metadata. There's the description. These are the notes from the element itself. Let's talk about navigating across the data that's available for you in web. Let's start with linked document. It sees that there is a linked document available for the element, and you can peruse whatever intelligence content is in that linked document. Next are operations. It sees that there's some operations that are available at the element level for search, buy operation, get operation, and so on. And it includes any metadata or notes that you've added to those operations. Next is associations to. And if it sees connections, relationships, associations between the elements, they're going to show up in your web report. So it sees that this particular element, e-commerce site, has an association to some other elements, data supply, machine learning AI, and there are links here. So you can select these and then go right to those elements. I'm going to hit the back button and go back. And then the associations to are available, including any metadata that you've included in that connectivity. Then same thing applies for associations from. So we have associations from chat element, the service exchange element, and CRM. And again, you can navigate to these elements on the web. Next is tag values. So it sees that there are tag values in the element, what the tag values are, any metadata that you've included in notes and so on within your tag values that you've extended from the element, in this case, e-commerce. Next are requirements. It sees that there are some relevant requirements to a particular element. So in this case, whatever requirements were created for a particular element, that they will show up here. Now, this is very important because when you're looking at the element itself, and let's go back to the Sparx project and let's look at e-commerce inside the element. So we're back over to the desktop version of Sparx. We're in our model. Let's double click on e-commerce and go in and look at requirements. So you can see that there are 3 internal requirements: digital sales, digital support, and search. Then there's a multitude of external requirements that were externalized. They were, in other words, they were moved externally. You've learned how to do this in the channel, and I'm not going to do that in this case. But these were just responsibilities or roles that we wanted to expose for each one of the elements, separate from the requirements analysis that's being done. Let's roll back to the web version and look at this metadata again. So we're back over in the web view for the e-commerce site, and we're on the requirements tab, and here's our internal requirements: digital sales, digital support, and search. And there are none of the external requirements that were used in analysis. In order to see those, you go to other links. So we go to other links. Here you see the requirements. And again, you can select these. Let's go ahead and select this one, and you can look at the requirement, any intelligence that's for the requirement. I'm not going to go into these other metadata elements, but all of the metadata that is available for that requirement. So you can see in other links from the requirement 004 that it has a link to e-commerce, and you can select this and go right back to it, or you can use your browser and navigate back. And so that's other links to be able to look at the external references to a particular element you're focused on. And then there's files. So we've got a Jamstack link here. I'm not going to select it. It happens to be a particular technology referencing the building block, the architecture solution that we're using. And then there's your advanced. But this is the data that will show in the tabs if available to a particular element. Now let's run a report at a sub package. So this is solution approach sub package here. It has some child packages underneath it: solution analysis, scope to solution, and use cases. So what we're going to do is run a report that's using this landing page next. So we're on our solution approach landing page within the solution approach namespace, and it has these child packages. This is going to now be the parent package, which is a child package of the overall project itself. And we are going to run a web report at this solution approach package. So we go to the publish tab, we go to HTML, we go to standard HTML report. It sees what package we're on. We're going to accept the title that's here, and we're going to use a output to path that our web administrator had created for us. And we're going to accept all the other defaults. We hit generate and run. I've already done that. Just hit view, and it will go out to that particular web location on your web server. Let's go to scope to solution. And in here, this is the navigation page that is on this particular part. If I select any of these packages, I get the package metadata. I get some diagram metadata that I can navigate to from here. Or if I go back out to the solution navigation, scope to solution, let's go to business requirements again. Here I have the diagram that is under that, and I have the elements. Notice the cursor. It means that this is a link. The hand means it's a link. Go over the requirements. I can't navigate to these. And the reason for that is that these requirements are external to the solution approach parent package, right? So I go back here, this parent package, there's no requirements that are in here. If I go again to requirements, you can see that, well, I have the metadata for the packages, but I don't have the elements. And if we were to go back to the original model, let's go ahead and close the web view, go back to the original model, and then right click, find in browser, that these are diagrams only. These requirement elements are in a namespace outside of the solution namespace that we ran the web report on. So how do you include the elements that are in a particular sub package for your stakeholders that are using Sparx Web? The answer to that is in how you build your package structure. So I have business requirements here. I have other requirements. I can take the parent folder here That includes the requirements that we're focused on, not the non-functional requirements, only the requirements that we're focused on. Let's look at business requirements. Now, I don't recommend doing this. This is very dangerous when you're in a team environment, but it is a solution. And that is to move, just drag and drop this down to solution approach. And now business requirements are part of the solution approach namespace. And then from here, you can run another HTML report at the solution approach package level. Now includes business requirements. Let's see what happens. All right, our web report is completed, but I want you to notice a couple things. Number one is the model default was disabled. It ran the web report at the current model. The current model we were on was on requirements. Therefore, when we launch this for all your stakeholders, it is going to launch on the subject that you were focused on. Let's go ahead and hit view. And you can see that by default, it's going to launch at this view. So we can go to solution approach and we can get to navigate to the solution approach page. And then from here, scope to solution, business requirements. I'm not seeing the diagram. Let's go back out. Let's hit out here. Let's go to business requirements. Let's go to this view here. I'm seeing the requirements. I'm able to select the requirements and see everything there. Let's go back to solution approach diagram. Let's go to the block diagram again. Let's go to e-commerce again. Let's go to other links. Now notice here, I'm going to zoom in. You notice here that business requirements now show up as a link. These other outside elements are not showing up. These functional requirements are not showing up. Glossary term was included in the sub package, it's showing up. This requirement here is showing up. This functional requirement is not. I'm able to zoom into the requirement. I can read the requirement. I can go to other links, come back down. I can zoom to other elements. Let's go back to e-commerce. So you're navigating now through the model based on your package structure that you set up when you ran the web report. So if I go back out here and close this, if I wanted the solution approach page to show up, let's go ahead and find that in browser. I would have run the report focused on this that allows me to get to the elements that I want to see navigating from the main landing page. So I hope this is making sense. Package structure and navigation is mission critical, just like developing any web page that you want to expose to your community, your users, in this case, your project stakeholders that don't have Sparx and want to get to your web views that you've provided to them. So their web views from the main page, you can go to solution, scope to solution, business requirements, and you're able to get to everything. All right, we're going to wrap up now. Before I forget, I'm going to take business requirements and take it back up to requirements management, put it in the folder that I want to have it in so that it's there available to the project stakeholders. Again, don't do that if you're working with a team, a large team, especially if your requirements engineer is working on requirements. Let them know that, well, I want to run a web report and I want to include this metadata. Then let them know before you do that. Let the project manager know. Otherwise, I wouldn't do that. I would let the project manager or the model administrator run your web reports when you need to. Typically, we run web reports at the end of the week when the project manager gives us a go. So I hope this was helpful for you. I know it was a long video. I promised to do a video, an episode on web reporting. And so there you go. Until that next episode, happy modeling.